Hi everyone, this is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics, and I am here today with Sarah Ullman, who is the co-founder and co-executive director of One Vote at a Time. Hi Sarah.
Hi Kelly, thanks for having me.
Let's start with the obvious question. What is One Vote at a Time?
One Vote at a Time is a team of female filmmakers who create free of charge campaign ads for candidates who believe in gun safety.
How long has it been around?
We started in the 2016 cycle, actually in the summer of 2016 after the Pulse nightclub shooting, and in the 2017 cycle in Virginia, and now we're working in the 2018 cycle as well.
And at this point, how many candidates have you worked with?
Oh, that's a great question. I guess, so in the 2016 cycle, we worked on a background checks ballot initiative in Nevada, which actually did pass by less than 0.1% of the vote total, although it's caught up in some legal challenges now. So the 16th cycle, we worked on a ballot measure rather than with candidates. And then in 2017, we worked with 19 different candidates for the Virginia House of Delegates. And then this year, so far, we've worked with just one as we're waiting for most of the primaries to go past, but we did get involved in Stacey Abrams' race and supported her with 22 videos, actually. Moving forward, we're planning on working with 250 candidates this cycle.
Okay, we'll circle back and talk about your plans in a minute, but now that we sort of have a base of what this organization is, let's go back and talk a little bit about what is your background? How did you come to doing this kind of work?
Sure. It's a little bit circuitous. There was, as real life happens, there wasn't a direct path necessarily to doing this work. I've always been political. I was the kid in high school who, wrote the op-ed like top 4 reasons why George W. Bush is wrong and why they're right. I've always been a political kid, a political person, and I've been passionate about politics, but only recently have I started to make it my full-time work. I started out after college. I moved out to Los Angeles to work in the entertainment industry. My dream was to be a director, and I started working at a talent agency. I worked for the Transformers producer at Paramount. I worked for a music video and commercial director. I did a Rihanna video and a couple Pink videos. And then I started working at this company called Maker Studios in 2012. And Maker was a YouTube, they call them multi-channel networks, a YouTube MCN. Basically, their job was to aggregate YouTube channels and sell ads across the network of YouTube channels, while at the same time helping the channels grow. And so that gave me an expertise in the digital space, in the digital world, and understanding digital video inside and out. And from there, I was working at Maker, and I started writing an email newsletter called The Jungle, which was an email newsletter about the digital video space, but aimed at film and TV executives. Because at the time, I'd been working for the Transformers producer. I was working in feature film development. And when I moved over to digital, everyone was like, "Oh, see you later." They thought they were never going to see me again. But they, a couple of years later, their bosses all told them to, get into YouTube, figure out YouTube. That's how things work in Hollywood. The boss, points on an executive and says, get into it. And so I had coffee with all of those people and realized that they needed more information about what was going on in the digital video world. So I started writing a newsletter about it, and it became really popular. And it allowed me to leave Maker and start my own business and eventually find my way to directing. The political work happened when in 2015, President Obama had sort of tasked his team with connecting with the digital world, with LA creatives in general, but with digital creators, recognizing that was a good way to reach a younger audience. And so the Office of Public Engagement would host gatherings, and I started attending them. And that's kind of how I re-entered the political world.
And you said this is a team of female filmmakers. Do they have similar stories about coming to politics? Or is there sort of a variety on your team about how people got to this?
Yeah, I think actually the majority of the people on my team are filmmakers by trade, as am I, and are just passionate about what's going on in the world, so have chosen to take on a political project. I think my work on the project is now full-time, is my job now, but for most of our directors, we are freelance people. We live a freelance life, and so this is one project that they'll take on this year out of many. But they're passionate about politics. They want to stand up and contribute their skills and their time to making the world a better place.
How did you decide to do this particular kind of work? So you wanted to do digital work and you wanted to do politics, but how did you come to be doing this particular kind of thing where you're taking videos and trying to elect particular candidates or work on particular campaigns?
Yeah, I remember there's actually, it's kind of the rare project where there is an origin story. Like, I remember the exact moment I had the idea for it. And I remember sitting on my couch after the Pulse nightclub shooting, watching Senator Chris Murphy filibuster for gun safety legislation. And I was crying. I was really upset about what had happened at Pulse. I'm an empathetic person and cry a lot. And I used to work for Senator Murphy I was an intern on Capitol Hill when he was a representative on the House side. And I'm from Connecticut. So Newtown had really resonated strongly. And his mission to fight for gun safety, it was such a clear moral call to action. It feels like there's, I haven't felt such a clear moral call to action. A few times in life are things so obvious that something needs to be done about them. Except for now, I guess, everything. Maybe that was at the time, during the President Obama administration, it felt like there was a rare, very clear moral call to action. Yeah. And so I was sitting there and I thought, well, where do I sit? What skills do I have? And I said, well, I'm a director. I know how to make things work well on the internet. And I think we need more people like Chris in Congress. So let me try and help elect some of them.
Terrific. So can we talk a little bit about the Virginia House of Delegates race then? You said that you guys worked with 19 candidates.
Yep.
How did you come to be working with them? Were these people that found you, people that you found? How did you decide who to work with?
Sure. A combination of ways. I think one of the people that we worked with the most, her name is Elizabeth Guzman, and she was running in the Virginia House of Delegates District 31, and she reached out to us in the middle of the summer. She had heard about us because we were doing a crowdfunding campaign. Last year in 2017, our budget was raised entirely from crowdfunding and was a total of about $37,000. And it was a very humbling process, but in the process of raising the money, word spread about what we were doing. And so we had a lot of incoming interest. And then also the way that we were able to accomplish, that many candidates was with partnerships. We worked with another partner group who helped us stay on in Virginia a little bit extra time. And in that way, we were able to fit in the full 19 candidates. A lot of the other candidates that we added on during our additional days that were paid for by this other group, we reached out to them offering our services.
So that, even with help from other groups, that's a really small budget.
Yes, yeah, it was challenging. That number is for the first week of our shoot, and it was for the time to travel to the districts of 3 of our candidates. So we did kind of fuller candidate story ads, meaning like 2 minutes long, 2 minutes 30 seconds long, for 3 different candidates where we traveled to their district and we spent 2 days with them and we interviewed them and went to events with them. For one of the videos, we interviewed voters. And then the other candidates, the other 16 candidates, we did in a sort of sit down in a studio style shoot where we invited them to come to us. And in that way, we were able to fit 16 more people in, because once if you're a film crew, if you stay in one location and you're set up and it's really time that's money there. So if we invited the people to come to us, and in that way we were able to almost stack the interviews. And then we took the footage. Well, for those, we gave the footage back to this other group to edit and post. But for our first week of footage, we took it back to LA and edited it.
What are the ways that these videos were used? Was it all digital distribution? Were they on candidates' websites?
Yeah, it was. It's all on the internet, mostly because these are state-led races that don't really have money for TV. And that's actually our sweet spot. That's where we think that we can be the most useful, because, first of all, state legislature matters, but also those races are won and lost on much smaller amounts of money. So a little bit of investment can go a long way. So the videos were used on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on their websites. And some of them put paid media spends behind the videos. So the videos would go out as an advertisement. And then some people just uploaded them to their pages and relied on earned media, or, people clicking and sharing organically without paid media behind them. I will say also, what we've realized is that there are, different intentions with video, different strategies, and different production strategies that you match with those intentions. So, for example, a candidate story ad, like I talked about, a candidate story ad where you go on location and film with a candidate for a couple of days and get good B-roll of them and go to events with them. Those ads are good for fundraisers and for creating an aspirational video, making the candidate into a figure that people look up to and that people are proud of and proud to share the video about that candidate. And those are really good to show at fundraisers, at events, at places where the candidate can't make it. It introduces the candidate at places where the candidate can come. And so those are really good for fundraisers because they elevate the race and they elevate the candidate. The other style that we do, where we bring the candidates in to sit down for an interview in a studio, and it's a little bit less expansive from a production value perspective. It's a little bit more limited to the room and to the story that they tell in the room. That stuff is good for name recognition. Sometimes the candidates are running in districts where the Republican has been in office for 20 years and they just need people to know their name. They just need people to know their name when they walk in to vote and say, oh, I know that person. There's a D next to their name. I know a couple things about what they believe. I've seen their face before. I have a general impression. I like them. Okay, yes. But so that shorter content is good for social media and for impressions, just like trying to give enough impressions of the person's face and their name together to get the voter to recognize them.
Yeah, I've realized, so I make these little audiograms of the podcast, and I've realized the time limitations of certain forums. So on Twitter, you're limited to 2 minutes and 20 seconds, and Instagram is a minute.
Yeah.
So figuring out how to say something in that time period, I think a lot of people who don't edit don't realize how much time it takes to cut something
yeah.
in a meaningful way, that's actually a really time-intensive process.
Totally. And I think that that's something that in this conversation that we're having about Facebook and the way that Facebook is impacting the world and politics in general, something that doesn't get talked about a lot is the way that the technology platforms, the way that their user experience and their conventions or their affordances create styles of content, right? So if you're restricted by the platform to a certain amount of time, or for example, on Facebook and Instagram, they like video to be in a 4:5 ratio versus in a 16:9 ratio. you start to watch the technology platforms shape the creative of what people make and how they tell stories. And I don't think that that's talked about enough, not just fake news and, the propagation of fake news, but how the stories we tell are shaped by the decisions that Facebook doesn't like too much text on screen. Okay, great. Then we have to all move in this direction. We all point our arrows